So, after a 2-week hiatus, Cormac, we're back at the Sancta Pater Noster podcast. I hope you get the meaning of that.
I do, yeah.
Thankfully, someone does.
Very clever.
So this has been kind of impromptu because you're obviously down in London and studying, and we had a number of people lined up for the podcast, but you're up this week just by chance and free to come along. So you maybe just give us kind of what are you doing just now in London? What's your thing you're doing?
So right now I'm at St Mary's University in Twickenham, and I'm doing a master's in theology. So that's what that involves is there's 3 classes that I do. The first semester that is systematic theology, and then I have biblical interpretation and spiritual theology. And the second semester, I can't remember off the top of my head, but this is more ecclesiology. The university changed the course a little bit before I came, so a lot of the subjects I have in my head are actually not actually being taught because I saw that on the website. But nevertheless, it's a master's in theology, so we'll cover all the basics. Well, we'll cover all the base subjects, and then go into the nitty gritty of certain aspects of each of them. It's a very detailed course, which is very specialised in some aspects, and it's a nice way to pursue what I really like to do, which is theology.
So you hope to do that as a future thing?
Yeah, I hope to advance it to PhD level after this, because I just really enjoy it. I feel that theology is not really in the public sphere enough. Yes, it's good to preach from the pulpit, but there's also the necessity of going out to those who don't go to church, who need more exposure to the likes of theological doctrine and Catholic dogma, and it's important to communicate that. Yeah.
No, I mean, one of the things that you find in modern society is that people don't really want to put religious belief in a sort of scientific, theological, philosophical perspective. They kind of want to reduce it to being something that's a fairy tale. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I suppose they do, really. So it is good to hear when people are really studying it and going into in depth in it. Yeah.
How is it to study theology? Has it challenged your faith?
I'd say probably not, because what did challenge my faith was what I did before that, which was social sciences.
Right.
And that is, and at its heart, social sciences is counter-religious. So you have the likes of, so the main schools we were taught were the likes of structural functionalism, feminism, and Marxism. Now, especially with feminism and Marxism.
That's a good lineup.
Yes, excellent. Feminism and Marxism. Feminism believes that religion is basically there to control the women.
Yeah.
And then Marxism to control the class, the proletariat. And that's arguably what challenged my religion or my faith more. And then that is where I would then end up encountering the likes of Aquinas, the Church Fathers, and the likes of Pius XII's decree against communism.
Yeah.
Where they excommunicated communists and all that, and then like all the different papal encyclicals and all the radical ideologies that emerged throughout the modern era. If
you look at the you're talking about being a challenge to your faith, if you look at these things on paper, you can see the kind of some of the arguments, but when you put them in reality, they don't work. They never have worked, Never
have. That's the great paradox of these things, like communism, for example, Marxism.
We've been to the former Soviet Union, and you've seen the remnants of it. I mean, would you say that's a positive thing?
Exactly.
You see, because my grandmother was Lithuanian, and she was born here, but her parents had fled Lithuania before the Russians took over. And the Iron Curtain then came down, of course. So it was only recently I actually met up with some family there, reconnected. But you see the difference. You see the difference in how that ideology has, had such a mal effect on society. But you're looking at the things you're studying now. How does that how does that apply to your life? Like, you know, people say, well, okay, it's great, there's great theologians out there, but how do you take that nitty gritty stuff and just dispense it or distill it into everyday?
Well, what you have to first of all talk about, if you want to bring it into everyday life, is talk about why the Catholic tradition, the apostolic tradition of the church, is more credible than the likes of these ideologies. Because right now in our systematic theology class, we learn about the likes of tradition, scripture, how that functions as deposits of revelation.
Yeah.
And then there's also the credibility aspect of it. If you look at the person of Jesus Christ, the historical figure of him, there's no one who has spoken with such authority in human history. There's no one who is there's no one who's had such a who's been written down so as much as Christ.
Yeah.
No one as charismatic. No one as encapsulating as Christ. And the number of complex questions you see time and again with his interactions with the Pharisees, where they try to catch him out, but they can't.
Yeah.
And it's like the sign of perfect knowledge. And and there's also been psychological studies, and psychologically it's impossible to actually make up the resurrection or the passion and resurrection narrative of Christ, because of how.
What do you mean psychologically?
Like they can't make up without external external events.
Yeah.
Like it's inconceivable.
I suppose a counter argument could be that someone could have made that up for. I'm just playing devil's advocate here, but I suppose someone could make it up by saying that, you know, this was something they invested in. This person they invested in. This person was ultimately killed, Jesus Christ, and the apostles then, you know, hid his body or lied to try and get something from it, but from nothing, you know. But as you say, there is no concrete argument against it.
Yeah, well, you go to your argument about the apostles wanting a bit of fame or something from that. There's not really there's no evidence of that really. Like you see the apostles. I think it was Aquinas who said they were simple men. And then if the apostles were really wanting fame out of this, they wouldn't have all given their lives for Christ, for the faith. Like you look at their terrible ways, they were crucified and stoned to death. Like when you learn about the story of the apostles, they're not there for if they were there for the fraud, if they were doing it for money, they wouldn't go as far as to give their lives.
Yeah. I mean, it's a fascinating thing. You think about these arguments all the time, and people don't really go into them. Do you mean they don't think? They just think, okay, I don't believe in God. I don't believe in Jesus. You know, they don't go into the nitty gritty of what actually happened. Something happened there. Something big happened there.
Yeah, something happened there, and it was witnessed by so many people. And you know, you talk about the apostles and things and giving their life. If it was some sort of big hoax, what did they benefit from it? Nothing. Quite the opposite, actually.
That's true, but also I'm thinking more of the question of, I mean, you know, the St. Paul's talks about 500 people seeing him at once, you know, or saw him, you know, resurrected. I mean, and he actually puts in the text that you can talk to them just now, they're there. So that's like, I always go back to like a court case scenario, like, you know, how many witnesses do you need to convict someone of a crime? I mean, I've got 500 people who have seen someone who's resurrected. I mean, people might say it's mass hysteria, I don't know, you know?
Yeah, I mean, there's loads of people who just who look at who give out these criticisms or give out these counter arguments. But then there's also the aspect of this. If it was mass hysteria, it wouldn't have continued for so long. Like this is, we're now 2,000 years in the future.
Yeah.
And we're on a podcast talking about Jesus Christ and arguing whether it happened or not. Now with mass hysteria, the difference is that's more reactionary. This is based off of a tradition and a scripture handed down by the apostles through the church fathers and through the bishops, the teaching authority of the bishops. And and that's a big thing, because there's many ideas that fade, come and fade.
Oh yeah.
Heresies, ideologies. Like we was talking about Marxism and all that. That largely fades away after less than a century.
Yeah, it did. Yeah.
So, and you have to look at these examples, or compare the likes of Christianity with these other religious religions or theories or cults, or
they don't stand up to scrutiny. None of them do.
Yeah.
You know, and they never really have been scrutinised as much as Christianity has been. I think everybody in life, whatever stage of that, where they are, you know, have to consider who is Jesus, and they have to answer that question, because it's the most fundamental question of life, I think, for me. You know, I don't know what it's for you, but you have to answer that question: who is he? And if he's just some madman, or some local preacher, or just some philosopher, then the question is meaningless. But if the answer is that he's God, then that changes everything for everybody.
Yeah, even I've again, going back to my systematic theology lectures, they referenced numerous people who've looked into the psychological profile of Jesus and concluded he wasn't mad, he wasn't a madman. Even ardent atheists say he doesn't fit the profile of a maniac. Yeah, and so that it's just nothing. No objection really holds a lot of weight to Christianity, from what I've found. And I've tested a lot of these myself. Like I've been like, well, that's something I might test out, and then I just see such a simple explanation against it. Yeah, like from maybe a famous apologetic writer, and I'm like, it's really that simple to just say, oh, this, that, and then the argument's basically null. Yeah. I've seen it so many times, and especially, as I said, with my social sciences, it challenged my faith. But then,
why did it challenge your faith?
Well, again, this was when I was not really as theologically informed about many aspects. So, for example, I would be for example, to take Aquinas as an example, he said God is the first cause. But then people would say, "Oh, what caused God?" Yeah, so that's more philosophical than social scientific. But then you would go and look at Aquinas' metaphysics and look at the nature of God. Yeah, and then you could just say, "Oh, but God was pure act, therefore he didn't require a first cause." In social sciences, again, it comes to it's more reductionist. It reduces religion to an institution. Yeah, Christianity to an institution.
People do that. People tend to focus on the rules, and they tend to focus on this idea of, you know, the patriarchy and the church controlling people. They don't focus on the idea that it's a relationship between God and Jesus Christ, between us and humanity. That's what it is. You know, we don't follow a book, we follow a person. Do you think there's actually many atheists out there? Do you think there's actually genuine atheists out there?
True atheists, who knows really? I think all logic goes against atheism, really. I think having a faith, there's more kind of sense and logic in it, and especially, you know, studying these things as well, looking at evidence and things as well, they all build up to that same argument as well.
Yeah, I mean, you look at Pascal's wager.
Yeah,
for example,
big one.
That was after when atheism was really like gaining ground, and that, as you said, more logical really to believe in God. You either believe and then you don't lose anything, or you don't believe and then you're at the risk of losing everything. So yeah, the logic really, especially when it comes to natural theology, really does lean towards there is something rather than nothing. Even with natural religion, even if you aren't informed about the dogmas of the faith, there's still that conscience that man has, that's built within them.
It's innate to us. Ever since before the earliest prehistoric times, men looked beyond themselves, they looked outwards. and question their existence, which is something which animals, as far as I'm aware, don't do. I don't know if your rabbit does that, Brian. Maybe Molly, is it Max or Molly? I can't remember the name.
I'll ask her later.
If she's thinking she exists, so she's eating.
See if she answers.
But no, it's something I've wrestled with, in the sense that how do we take that study and make it relevant to people? Because sometimes I think in modern society now, people dismiss God because of negative experiences of church or religion, because of feeling isolated or feeling, left out of things or judged, and they don't want to look at the arguments. So I don't know if that comes from a place of shame or fear, or just simply just ignorance. What do you think?
Yeah, that's one. That's a good question, actually. I would have to say, maybe, I think there is a combination of all three of those that you said. I mean, when you look at fear, like people, like many I've seen as a lot of people are atheists because they fear.
Yeah.
They fear the eternity after them. You look at shame. Maybe people think either I think there's two routes you can go down in terms of shame. One is maybe looking at I feel shame that you didn't believe in such a wonderful thing, or the other route is shame in that you're so, that's just going more into Calvinist theology, where you're ashamed that you're so wretched and so sinful. And then what was the other one you said? Then
shame, fear,
bad experiences.
Yeah, it can be bad experiences. But obviously, the church has been through a lot with crisis with that in the last few decades.
But then, the thing is about bad experiences is that, obviously you sympathise, but that doesn't mean the church, the theology itself, loses its theological credibility. Yeah, like that's another common argument against faith, and then again that goes more sociological.
I mean, people put it on the person of the priest, and such and such did this to me, or such a priest did that to me, I'm not going back to chapel anymore. I mean, me and Brian know fine well, working with Sancta, how difficult it can be to work with the church. I think you know that.
Well, yeah, it can be. It really, really can be. But I think also you find like people that have been Catholic and have kind of fallen away from the church in a sense as well, they always have that innate feeling in them. So if they've left the church because they don't like a particular priest, or something's happened that they don't like or they disagree with, I often feel that if you actually speak to that person, they've still got that faith, or that spark of faith in them. So whether they're going to the church or not, for whatever reasons, they still have that faith, they still hold on to that faith.
And that's what the challenge we need to look at now as a church, how to give them that space to do that. And I think that, I mean, we could do a whole podcast on how difficult it's been for Sancta to operate. Quite frankly, a lot of clergy are not supportive of us. Right. For whatever reason, I don't know why.
A lot of them are, I have to say, a lot of them are as well. There's a kind of minority there, but most of the clergy we work with are.
It's basically one of the things I like Pope Francis talking about was actually this curse of gossip. People have these perceptions of you and these views of you, and I think really what I'm trying to get at is that our entire rationale and trying aim of Sancta is to try and bring people to that understanding of God and to faith, and to try and break down those barriers of fear and guilt, and trying to see what you've been talking about, the rational arguments that are there, not just basing it solely on experience. Because I could have chucked in the towel 10 years ago, but I'll never chuck in the towel. Because you know why? Because I believe in Christ, and I focus on Him. Yeah. And I focus on the Eucharist, and I focus on confession, and I focus on it's His church, and I trust. Who was it said the words? Hilaire Belloc said that very proof that the church is divine. It's been run by such knavish fools. I'll get pulled up for that comment. Not applying to anyone in particular. But I mean, the priests are human, the bishops are human, the Pope is human, the cardinals are human. Yep. God isn't human. God is divine. Jesus Christ is divine. And the very fact is, you're talking about ideologies have fallen away and faded away. the Catholic Church endures and always will endure because it comes from God. And that's what I think.
Yeah.
So it's an interesting thing. It's a difficult thing to talk about in the church. We have tremendous support from people. Tremendous support from mostly lay people more than anybody else. A lot of good priests, a lot of supportive priests. But there is this, I don't know how you describe it.
There's always kind of two sides to the argument, isn't there? I mean, at the end of the day, we're all human. We're human as well. We make mistakes. In Sancta, we've made mistakes.
I get pulled up for mistakes all the time when I post.
That's
I'm too trigger happy. I'm learning. Okay, it only took me 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, the church does teach forgiveness, and I think the thing is you've got to look and say, well, we all make mistakes, and we have to move on from them. And you know, we're all here to promote the faith, promote the church, and to love God at the end of the day. And that's what we're all wanting to do, and we'll all try and do it in our own ways. And yeah, sometimes some of us get things wrong, but that's okay.
I wish Catholics went to confession more. Why do you think they're not going?
Again, I think it's so human. Again what you talk about, the shame and the fear.
Yeah. Every time I go to confession all the time. I need to go to confession all the time, but every time I go, it's always the same. It's always difficult to do it, to force yourself to do it, but afterwards it's always worth it.
Yeah,
always worth it.
There's a quote that I've always lasered into my mind. Every saint has a past, every sinner a future.
Yeah.
And this is what I think Catholics need to internalise, is that saints, the saints that are so high in grace, in glory, were actually sinners, like, and every saint has sinned because they're human.
Yeah, exactly.
And you look at the likes of, take a biblical example, Saint Peter denied Christ.
Yeah, to his face. Not to his face, but you know.
Yeah, denied Christ.
Yeah.
Saint Paul persecuted the church. And look at them. Look at they have the two grandest tombs in the world.
Yeah. Because
they didn't give into despair like Judas. Judas gave into despair, like when in the Garden of Gethsemane, when Judas kisses Christ on the cheek. Christ says, "Friend, you have betrayed me," but he says, "Friend." He says, "You're still my friend." Like offering his forgiveness. Yeah. But Judas, in his despair, doesn't accept it. But meanwhile, Peter and Paul did. Yeah. And grander, and they've got tombs grander than any king as a result. What do you think of this kind of modern movement now you're hearing, where some priests and some bishops, etc., kind of have a kind of softer spot for Judas more than things? I don't, personally. I think Judas is in hell. I think if you look at scripture, I think Jesus' words are pretty stark about what Judas, better that man hadn't been born. But yet, why is it now that some people are saying that, well, maybe perhaps Judas was saved? I think this comes a lot from... So there's this... Now, I haven't read a lot of his work, but there's a Swiss theologian called Hans von Balthasar, who wrote the Dare We Hope book. And Nouvelle Theology. Yeah. And basically how we should pray for all souls. Now, we can pray for all souls, yes. However, as you say, there's a point where you have to think rationally. Yeah, of course. Like, did they die? Like, Judas died, or died by suicide. Yeah. After betraying Christ without embracing his forgiveness. Yeah, total despair. Complete despair, and that is something that we have to avoid as Catholics, is despairing of God's mercy. I think, one thing I will say is, you mentioned suicide. I think, it's one of those things which is a terrible scourge. I think you have to distinguish between Judas's suicide and the kind of modern versions of suicide you see. Obviously, the church has very nuanced views on that now, because we've greater understanding of mental health. But I don't think there's any indication that Judas's
killing himself was from that. It was more from the complete and utter despair.
And that's the other thing you have to think about. I was going to move on to the other modern conceptions, is that suicide, the church held to be a mortal sin.
Yep.
Now, for mortal sins, it needs to be grave matter, has to be eternally against God's law.
Yep.
You have to have full knowledge as such,
Yes.
and that you have to have deliberate consent, you have to have full consent of the will.
Yeah, that's
And
mortal
now-
sin.
And now, unfortunately, many people who go that terrible route do not have full consent of the will.
Of course, because they're totally afflicted by their mental condition, mental state.
Precisely, and that's where God's mercy will come in for them.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, meanwhile with Judas, I mean, Judas probably had probably one of the best chances at forgiveness by even going to Christ himself and saying, "Lord, forgive me. I'm wretched."
Yeah.
And he was taught firsthand Christ's teachings, and he will have known a lot about what Christ would have taught. Do not despair.
Yeah.
Like the most often repeated phrase, "Do not be afraid." And with Judas, I feel there's a lot more responsibility in his part.
Yeah.
And that's why and he consented to betraying Christ for money. And then he knew that he'd betrayed Christ. He was in despair. But then he'd been taught as a disciple or as an apostle Christ's forgiveness and his mercy.
Yeah.
But decided not to go for that.
So you can see those kind of different lines being drawn of why people would have that kind of teaching and think, maybe how can we look at this a different way that seems too harsh. I think that goes back to our kind of rationale, how we work, is that, you work for the truth. I think the truth is the kindest thing you can do to anyone, I could quite simply tell lies about the faith and say that we don't teach this, we don't teach that, and avoid the hard issues. But it has to be embraced. So when it comes to, this idea of mortal sin and forgiveness, that's always been our kind of rationale, to stick to the Catholic faith with the aim of being love. It's always love is first. You love someone, you love the other person, you want the best for them, and as a Catholic, you want that to be their salvation. So it can be easy for me to say, well, do what you like, or Judas was saved. If Judas was saved, we're all going to be saved. We can do what we like. That's a big party down here. That's not the case, and that's the cross. That's why the cross and love are one.
Yeah.
And we can't avoid suffering. I was going to go into the suffering a bit there because we're in the month of the Holy Souls, and you obviously had a bit of suffering in your life.
Yeah.
Personal loss. So you spoke very movingly about that in an article recently. Maybe you could kind of tell us kind of the background to that.
Yeah, so back in 2020 in July, I lost my dad to lung cancer, non-smoking lung cancer. So he had fought that battle for 4 years, and I remember the day we found out was the day we found out was the day after school's finished.
Yeah.
And I remember my dad getting my siblings together. My mum was next to him, and he told us broke news to us. I would have been 15 at the time. And you can't even prepare yourself for that news, can you?
Yeah.
And nothing prepares you for it. However, what my dad did in the moments after that would set a precedent for those 4 years of his battle. I remember me, my siblings, just absolutely devastated.
Of course.
World torn apart. And he then, I hear a distinct rustle of rosary beads, and he says, "Let's pray a decade of the rosary together." And we did. And almost every evening since then, or from then on to the day he died, we would say a decade of the rosary together, and pray for all our intentions, pray for him, pray for a miracle, if not a miracle, more time.
Yep.
Wherever your will is.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that faith really struck me. And that contributed to probably to my formation more than any theological book or any theologian.
Yeah. It's real life, it's raw.
Yeah,
That's
real
it.
life is absolutely raw, and God, it said time and again, but from personal experience, it's so true. He works in your most vulnerable and darkest moments.
Oh, I could tell you that again.
Oh,
I mean, I'm not anything as bad as that, but some people would say, that the faith is a crutch in that situation. Do you think it is?
the faith.
That some people become more religious when there's suffering in life because of that suffering, rather than it being necessarily true. Is that that I'm playing devil's advocate again.
Yeah, it gives them that
Yeah.
help, that crutch to lean on in a difficult time.
I can see where that argument comes from, but again, we also have in our souls the Holy Spirit, and many times I'd say the way the human body or the human mind works, again referencing Aquinas, is that we're destined for something greater.
Yeah.
And then the thing is about, I think it may be that Christ plays into the way human nature works so well. And I think this is why people think that religion makes more of a crutch than why they truly believe. But I think Christ suffered, died, and resurrected for, like, the suffering and pain and death were for a greater goal. That was for resurrection, for man's salvation. And I think this was something that he would do in advance for us, for so that we could look at how suffering makes us grow. Even before Christ, look at the Stoics. They said that suffering helped us grow.
Yeah.
But then Christ almost completed it by giving an example of the worst suffering imaginable.
Exactly, yeah.
And I feel when people turn to religion as some in suffering, I feel we were talking about natural theology earlier. I feel that is really Christ working. As I say, Christ works more in our darkest moments.
Yep.
And this is when the Holy Spirit almost gives you this movement, movement towards embrace me and I'll make your burden light. Yeah,
absolutely.
And that's how I think that's what it is, because everybody has a soul. Everybody therefore has the Holy Spirit speaking to them, whether through conscience or through feeling.
And how did your father cope with his faith throughout that time of his illness? Obviously, it was very important to him, but how did he express that faith, and did he talk about it with you?
He was absolutely steadfast. He was unshakable.
Yeah.
He would talk to us. He would always say to us, especially to me and my brother, he would say, "This is going to be a hard life as a Catholic, and it's going to be tough, because people won't like what you have to say."
Yeah.
And he was absolutely steadfast. He was unshakable, and we were talking earlier about my doubts in faith.
Mm-hmm.
That was another thing.
Yeah.
And I said to my dad, why would he do this? Why would he do this? And he would lean back in his black chair and just give some sort of composed explanation. And I'd be like, okay.
Yeah.
Right. And I would have these doubts every now and then, because sometimes we would get bad news from a scan or a hospital, and he would just say, this is we all have our crosses in life, and this is my cross.
Yep.
And he I think, was it St. Alphonsus said, in your hardest moments, nail your heart to the cross, to Jesus' cross.
Yeah.
And that's what he did. And his faith absolutely steadfast in it, and he never wavered, never did anything or never said anything which came across as him doubting his faith.
Wow.
He was always so steady in it. He was the order in the midst of chaos. That's what I say in my article.
Yeah, remember that line? That's a very poignant point you made. You know, he's the one that's suffering from it.
Yeah.
But yet, by his presence of mind and also his faith, he's steadying that ship of choppy water. But you're on choppy waters, you know, at that point in time. I remember Father Keegan's sermon here. He's a Redemptorist. He was here, and Brian and I have suffered loss. You know, we've lost our grandparents and we've lost aunts and uncles and things. You know, so it does leave you thinking why. You know, and maybe they're not as young as your dad was, and not as maybe as his death was as premature, and they had a full life. But you still have those questions of why do we have to die? But Father Keegan's sermon was the shortest Easter sermon I've ever seen in my entire life. It was short. I don't know if you remember it or not. But his simple sermon was, this Easter, go to the graveyard, stand at the grave, and just imagine Jesus' hand lifting them out. And that's what it is. Because we have our crosses. Yes, we have our terrible crosses to bear. But we have a resurrection as well, because of Christ. So everything is back to him. We should never be afraid of anything. Because as Father Grant says as well, Jesus has undone the worst thing that can ever happen to any of us. Nothing worse than death. Yeah. What's worse than death? You know? Any suggestions?
I've got no suggestions.
He's undone it. And that's the crux, if you pardon the pun, that's the crux of the matter. The crux of the matter is our faith is bound in history, it's bound in truth, and it's bound in that reality that you have to answer for yourself. Who is Christ? How do I achieve salvation? How do I go through that? You know, and as you said, you touched upon it, the idea of being a Catholic. It's hard. Of course it is. It's bloody hard.
It is.
It's bloody hard. And some people have it easier than others. Yes, they do. I'll give them that the case. But, you know, I used to do some talks on TikTok. We kind of chats, and people come on, and I got a lot of abuse on it, which is fair. I don't really care. I've got a bit of a thick skin. But a lot of them said, you're just brought up Catholic. You're just Catholic because you're brought up Catholic. No. I'm Catholic because I choose to be Catholic every single day of my life. You know? I'm Catholic because, yes, my parents brought me up Catholic. Some of my other siblings don't practice. What happened to them? I don't know. But I'm Catholic because I choose it and because I truly believe it. And that's despite how hard it is. It's despite the prejudice you get from people in society. That's despite the sectarianism you sometimes face. It's despite some of the abuse you get online, and despite even the politics in the church itself. I'm still a Catholic because I believe in Christ. That's what it is.
Absolutely. I mean, Christ is he's the way, the truth, and the life, and he's the Logos. He's the Word. He's the Word made flesh. His words are final.
Yep.
And yeah, as you say, people have to wake up every day and say, I choose
Yep.
to believe. I choose to abandon myself to Christ, abandon myself to his will every day.
Why'd you make that choice, Brian?
That's a difficult question, isn't it?
It is.
It really
You
is.
choose to be a Catholic. You don't need to be, but you choose to be.
You choose it every single day of your life, I suppose. I suppose because you have that belief in God within you. And it is that choice that, as you said, you make that choice every single day of your life when you wake up in the morning. And you talk. I mean, you mentioned there, John, about people saying, you're a Catholic because you were brought up a Catholic, or your parents chose for you to be a Catholic. I mean, that's clearly not the case, because I've got siblings as well that maybe don't practice the faith, and they were brought up Catholic as well. So you have to choose every single day to stay Catholic and remain Catholic, and hold on to your faith.
Yeah. I mean, I've never really had. I'll be honest. I've never had any doubts about my faith. Never had any doubts. And I think that's a strange thing, I suppose. I mean, I think a lot about things. I think a lot about the whys of things and how that works, and try to imagine things and try and think things through. But the very core foundation of it is my belief in Christ. I believe who he is. I believe who he said he was, and everything flows from that. Everything flows from that. And yes, I mean, sometimes I identify as the rich man or the rich young man in the gospel when he wants to follow Christ, and Christ is quite stark and says there's some things you have to give up.
Yes.
And there are things I have to give up. There's things I have to give up, and that's the challenge of being a Christian, being a Catholic. There's things the world, offers you pleasure, offers you fame, fortune. These things don't satisfy. They never satisfy.
No, they're empty. They're hollow, and yeah, when you choose to go through something that requires more giving up, whether something personally or something, or letting go of someone or something, that's the real, not just spiritual growth, but character growth.
Yeah.
And this is what many people also don't really recognise nowadays, is that being a Christian leads to not just spiritual growth but character growth. Leads to you becoming more steady. Leads to you becoming more secure and more and have a greater vision of what you want to do, a greater vision of the world.
Yeah.
And when you think about that, it really just shows you how in tandem Christianity works with human nature. And especially when you lose when I lost my dad, I remember that day. I remember it was so scary, terrifying.
Yeah.
Terrifying. But when you pray, and when you read, now it may sound a bit odd, but if you read the Passion narrative, and then you realise that there will be suffering, but at the end of it, you can have eternity. Then that gives you that strength. That strength, not something any sort of medicine, not painkiller would do to you.
Yeah.
In fact, it's more embracing the pain that makes you grow, and doing it in a healthy manner.
Yeah, absolutely.
You have to always just realise that your life here is but a grain of sand in the beach of eternity.
Yep.
And Jesus would always talk about that. And that life is so delicate, and people in society don't want to talk about that.
No, they don't.
It's either they want to either be desensitized to death by showing it in to a great extent in horror movies, or they don't want to talk about it at all.
Yep.
This is a life, and after that, lights out.
And that's why they've got this great call now for euthanasia. People that want to embrace the suffering, that want to embrace the cross, they want to have this. It's a fear of death. They want this control of it. I can control it. I can choose it, and I can choose the manner of it. And ultimately, that is in itself a form of despair.
Exactly. Euthanasia comes more from, every argument for it is from an existential viewpoint, not from a spiritual one. They want control of, like, and many advocates argue that it's for intolerable suffering. But suffering helps us grow.
The way I see it is like, I go to the PT and I'm not the best person at doing exercise. And that's why I've got a PT. But when you look at muscles and how muscles grow, it's the idea that, how muscles grow, don't they? You're actually tearing them.
Through hard work and exercise.
Yeah, but you're tearing them. So that physically you're actually damaging your muscles. Then you eat protein or whatever. And then from that, those tears grow and your muscles get bigger. So in a sense, that suffering is like that for the soul. It tears you apart, it hurts you. But ultimately, I think it'll strengthen you, over time. And you've come out from that very dark period of, no doubt there'll be days in your life and you'll still have that great wound. It doesn't ever heal. Loss doesn't ever heal until we're united again. But with time and with faith and patience, you get through it.
Yeah, it's amazing what like I look back on that terrible day and just look to see how far that I have come as a result of that. And I have to give so much credit to those around me as well. They really rallied, and people still check in with me all the time. You doing all right? How you doing?
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, somebody, excuse me, I think it was Father's Day this year. Someone just checked in with me saying, "You're all right?"
Yeah,
and hadn't spoken to me in ages.
Oh well, that's nice.
And it was really nice, and that, like, and I think that is a result of, obviously, again, my dad's order.
Yeah,
he wasn't chaotic. He brought many people closer as a result of his illness. And again, this is where greater things can come out, or great things can come out of a terrible tragedy.
Yeah.
And it challenges you to think, like, carrying on my dad's legacy. Like, I'm carrying on my dad's legacy. How can I do? How can I maintain and keep his name, and therefore put my name in a respectable light? What can I do in life?
Yeah.
What can I do to really bring him and his name to the fore? And it really does.
You see that in the theology side of things?
I do. I think he was a journalist, and then he was editor of the BBC Report in Scotland, but he really had a lot to say about faith. And I think that's what made me grow in my faith so much, because it wasn't just reading from a textbook or a theologian.
Yeah.
It was my dad, who was suffering from a terrible illness. He was going through his Calvary, if you could say. And as a result, it's made me grow. It's made me grow in my faith, and now I'm wanting to radiate that kind of energy, that kind of that faith to others who I meet.
Yep.
And
I think you're doing that pretty well.
So
we met you in Rome, and you've had that kind of there's a joy in the faith. We've had a very dark discussion.
No, I mean,
it is November and Dies Irae and all that, but the fundamental of it, we have to have joy as well.
Absolutely.
And I think you do have that joy, that passion for the faith, which is something which Brian and I share as well. It's something which, try and find that joy, and despite the darknesses. I always have found great comfort in that Funnily enough, Father Grant, he'll kill me for saying it, but he's got a very odd taste in liturgy things, very odd taste in some things. So he found a form of the Exultet, which was I think it was a Lutheran version of it, an English translation. I actually quite liked it. I thought, it grew on me, and he might, some people might think I'm some sort of mad traditionalist, whatever. But, it wasn't the true Exultet, in Latin and whatever. But one of the words in that was, "Darkest of nights becomes your days of days," and that was a very poetic and a very moving thing for me. And I always see that, and always, when I think of someone in their death, I think of someone in their deathbed. It's the darkest of nights, but it becomes their day of days, and that's what I see. That's what I hold on to. So on a more positive note, before I start crying, because I'm a very emotional young man, we'll do the Catholic quickfire, okay? So how it works is you've got the minute for the questions. Brian's going to flip the timer, and hopefully that should clear the air. Right, okay, so Cormac, are you ready to do Catholic quickfire?
Yes, I am, yeah.
That's full consent, isn't it? You've signed the sheets?
Yes, I have, yeah.
Good, okay, so Brian, do the honours and turn us over.
Timer.
You do morning prayers or night prayers?
I do both.
What's a pope you'd love to have for dinner?
Pies of tents.
Very nice. Favourite thing about church as a child?
Teas and coffees afterwards.
Oh, fair enough. A saint who would be great at five-a-side football?
That's a good question. Let's go. John Evangelist.
Okay, interesting choice. What do you thank God for the most?
For my character growth, for what He's given me in life.
If you were a saint, what would you hope to be patron saint of?
Scholars.
I thought about hair quiffs. It's a good quiff. Who's your confirmation saint?
Jerome.
A saint you're going on holiday with?
Aquinas.
Ooh, very good. Some pints with Aquinas. Confession behind the screen or face to face?
Behind the screen.
Good. What is your favourite prayer?
Salve Regina.
Love it.
And we're out of time.
And we're out of time, so well done, Cormac. Thanks for coming on. Keep up the good work down in London with the theology and whatever God leads you to do in life. So it's a pleasure to have you in here, and no doubt we'll stay in touch and see how your character growth develops.